Hello. So in this video, we're going to talk about Mark Jones's film Leprechaun. This is a horror film. Not necessarily a great horror film. It's a sort of weirdly fun horror film, largely because Warwick Davis, who plays the Leprechaun, is quite funny in that role. Even though the film wasn't necessarily intended to be funny, it is one of those, like, it's not necessarily a so bad it's good type film, but it's in that same sort of vein. We also have a very, very young Jennifer Aniston playing Tori Redding, who's sort of the other main character of the film. The Leprechaun, obviously, is the primary antagonist. Tori Redding is the main protagonist. That's actually a really interesting bit about this, because this is it's a variation of the traditional horror trope of the final girl. But it's not really a final girl scenario. And I'll talk more about that. So basically what happens is, in, I guess, the 80s, 1983 or so, since it's implicit that the events of the main portion of the film are contemporary, and the film came out in 93, so we'll say 83. Dan O'Grady shows up back at his home in North Dakota. Dan O'Grady and his wife Leah are both Irish. For some reason, they're in North Dakota. And Dan O'Grady's like, guess what? We're rich. I found a leprechaun. I got his pot of gold. Awesome. Fucking, it's going to be easy street and something good avenue. And his wife is like, that does not seem right. Turns out, Dan O'Grady did actually capture a leprechaun, and he got his pot of gold, and the leprechaun was not amused. And so he stowed away in one of Dan's trunks. He got back to their house. He kills Leah O'Grady, and he basically is trying to kill Dan O'Grady in order to get his pot of gold back. Dan manages to contain the leprechaun with the power of a four-leaf clover, which apparently leprechauns it's their kryptonite, I guess. I don't know that that's really, like, properly rooted in traditional Irish folklore, but it's an important component of this film. So the leprechaun basically gets trapped in a box, a wooden box, with which Dan puts the clover on, and Dan is going to light the leprechaun on fire, which he doesn't do because he has a stroke. Cut to 10 years later, Leprechaun's still in the box, and Tori Redding and her dad, J.D. Redding, show up for reasons. This is actually one of the weirdest bits of the film to me, is that we start with Tori just complaining about having to go with her hick father out to this place rather than staying in LA. And there is no explanation at all for why they are there. Why are they in North Dakota? Why has he bought this house? The closest the film comes to any explanation is that he got a really good deal on it. But that is not inherently a reason for buying an old, deserted house in a state half the country away from where you live. And this would be such an easy thing to fix in the movie. Just have him say, like, honey, I got a great job here in fucking nothing around North Dakota. right? Like, if he was moving there for work, okay, great, cool. Don't know what he does that requires him to move to North Dakota from LA, but I'd accept that, right? Instead, it's just, we're just moving to North Dakota, or we're at least spending the summer in North Dakota, and we're going to fix up this house for reasons. So I actually do have kind of a problem with that, in part because it's such an easily fixable thing. But they're in there, the four-leaf clover, during the course of their sort of cleaning and setting up the house, with these three guys who paint is the name of the company. Nathan Murphy, the sort of heartthrob that Corey Redding is infatuated with, his little brother Alex, who is sort of this smart, business savvy, whatever little kid, good comic part, and then Ozzie Jones, who is this sort of bumbling, probably developmentally disabled adult, who is Alex's good friend, and who is always making up these stories. Over the course of their sort of cleaning, the four-leaf clover gets knocked off this crate, which has just sat in this basement for a decade. The leprechaun escapes, starts attacking everybody, and is like, I need my gold, where's my gold, etc., etc. Also, he was really into shoes, because he's a cobbler by profession, and so he's into like shining people's shoes and things like this. Alex and Ozzie find the gold. Ozzie accidentally swallows a piece of gold. That's an important plot point. And basically, Alex and Ozzie are going to try and sell this gold, make a lot of money. And there's actually really quite a heartbreaking scene, I think, where after they find the gold, Alex is like, we can sell this and get you an operation to make you smart. And Ozzie's like, I'm smart. And Alex is like, yeah, I guess, but like, we can make you even smarter so that people won't make fun of you. And it's clear that Ozzie has never realized that people make fun of him. And he learns this from this kid who's supposed to be his friend. And it really is quite a painful scene. And I think in retrospect, later in the movie, it actually gets more painful, because when they sort of confess to having found this gold, and this is why this leprechaun is attacking them and trying to kill them, Tori says, you can't have an operation to make Ozzie smarter. And Alex says, I know that, but Ozzie doesn't. And the reason that I find that so problematic and troubling is because Ozzie did not introduce that idea. Ozzie did not say, with this money, I can have an operation to make me smarter. Alex suggested that to him. It's clearly not a thing that Ozzie had ever thought about or had any desire for. And so, I mean, I think Alex is genuinely supposed to be a positive character, but I find this very, very troubling that he went out of his way to make his friend feel stupid in a way that his friend clearly did not feel before, knowing that the solution that he was promising his friend was not a real option. I actually think that's really troubling. I mean, I know I said one of my big problems with the movie was the whole, why are they moving to North Dakota thing, but that's a sort of, like, that's a thing that irritates me. This is a thing that genuinely, like, I have concerns about why it was done this way, because it is such a cruel thing to do to Ozzy, who, yes, if you had to sort of hang out with him and constantly have him like making up these lies and tall tales about aliens and Sasquatch and whatnot, yes, I could see where that would be irritating. But he's basically a good guy. He wants what's best for those around him. He is a good friend to those in the movie. And I don't understand why the film or Alex felt the need to do this very cruel thing to him. I don't even get the sense that this was meant to be like, ha ha ha, let's point and laugh at this person who, again, probably has some sort of developmental disability. Like, it doesn't feel like a moment where, I mean, of course, today we would be very, we would generally say that's an ethically problematic thing. You should not use people with disabilities as a source of humor. But I don't even get the feeling that the film is trying to do that. Like, that even I could understand, as bad as it would be. But the scene doesn't read that way. It very much reads like we are supposed to be on the side of Ozzy. Like, we are supposed to sympathize with him. But it's a pointless piece of cruelty in that instance. So anyway, they're fighting the Leprechaun. The Leprechaun is coming after them. He catches Nathan's leg in a bear trap, which is kind of interesting, because normally in sort of an action movie or something like this, you would expect that Nathan would really step up and be like, yeah, I'm going to take out this leprechaun. And he does, sort of. I mean, he shoots the leprechaun a number of times with a shotgun, but the leprechaun is immune to bullets. So it's just like, it's a minor inconvenience. Nathan is kind of useless in this sense. Ultimately, they sort of realize that Dan O'Grady might know how to defeat this leprechaun. And so Tori goes to the nursing home where he has been for the last 10 years, finds that the leprechaun has gotten there first. The leprechaun chases her through the thing, and she ends up in the elevator, which apparently is where the almost dead body of Dan O'Grady is. And he manages to tell her that you have to put a 4-leaf clover on the leprechaun's body, and then you can kill it. And there's a patch of 4-leaf clovers on his property, so they have to go back and find one of those. They do eventually, after some more leprechaun-based combat. And then Alex uses his slingshot to wrap the 4-leaf clover around a wad of gum, and he shoots it into the leprechaun's mouth. Leprechaun sort of starts basically melting. And then Nathan shoots him with a shotgun. He falls into the well. They dump a bunch of gasoline into the well and light it on fire. The film then ends with the leprechaun basically being like, yeah, I'm on fire at the bottom of a well. Got a fucking 4-leaf clover in my gullet, but I'm going to be back and get all my gold. Mainly the one piece of gold that Ozzy had swallowed. So I think it's very interesting. Again, this sort of structure with Tori Redding as basically like the protagonist, because again, in horror films, there's a very old tradition of the final girl. That is, everybody else gets killed off, and the one usually sort of virginal, non-drug doing girl is the final survivor who manages to defeat the killer. In this instance, Tori really is sort of responsible for the leprechaun being defeated, even though it is Alex who shoots the 4-leaf clover at him. Because Tori's the one who finds out they need the 4-leaf clover. She's the one who finds the 4-leaf clover in the patch, etc., etc. And she very much seems to be the sort of driving force of this. This was 1993, so Jennifer Aniston was not the huge star that she was later to become, particularly with Friends, but I think there might have been a sort of sense that she was on the rise, and so she's very, very central to actually resolving this conflict. But she's not really a final girl, because everybody who gets killed by the Leprechaun is basically a supporting character. Leah O'Grady is the first one who gets killed. Dan O'Grady eventually gets killed. Deputy Trippett, Joe, the jeweler pawn shop guy, they all get killed by the Leprechaun. And none of them really matter. None of them are particularly central to the movie. All of the central characters, Ori Redding, Nathan Murphy, Ozzie Jones, Alex Murphy, even J.D. Redding, who mostly drops out of the movie after the Leprechaun bites his hand and they take him to the hospital, they all survived the film. So there's no final element to the final girl here. She is the final girl in the sense of the only other female character in the film is Leah O'Grady, who dies almost in the first 5 minutes or so. But this is unlike something like Friday the 13th or Texas Chainsaw Massacre, in which the vast majority of the characters get killed off and there's really only one survivor. So that's an interesting twist on this. We have that sort of final girl element in that Tori Redding is the primary driver of defeating the killer, or in this case, the Leprechaun, but not the final girl in the sense of everyone else has been killed and she is the sole survivor. So it's an interesting twist.